God, calm my mind and allow me to surrender. You are not broken because your mind refuses to rest. You are not faithless because your thoughts keep racing when everything around you goes quiet. You are human, carrying more weight than you were designed to hold alone. I see how your mind works over time, trying to predict what could go wrong, replaying what already hurt, scanning the future for threats that may never come. You tell yourself you need to stay strong, stay alert, stay in control. But strength was never meant to feel this heavy. Control was never meant to cost you your peace. You wake up tired, even after sleeping. You sit in silence, yet your mind is loud. You try to pray, but your thoughts interrupt every word. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet fear forms. What if this never stops? What if this is just who I am now? Listen to me. This is not your identity. This is your soul asking for relief. This is your heart signaling that it was never designed to live in constant tension. I'm not here to give you techniques to manage your mind. I'm not here to teach you how to distract yourself from your thoughts. I'm here to invite you into something deeper, something gentler, something more honest. You do not need to fix yourself before coming to me. You do not need to calm down to be worthy of peace. You come as you are, restless, overwhelmed, tired of carrying everything by yourself. Right now, I'm not asking you to silence your mind. I'm asking you to stop fighting it, to stop judging yourself for feeling what you feel, to stop believing that peace is something you must earn through effort or discipline. Peace begins the moment you allow yourself to be held instead of holding everything together. Stay with me. Let these words settle. You are safe here. What you are about to experience is not pressure to change, but permission to release. Your mind does not need to be conquered. It needs to be surrendered when peace feels unavailable. There are moments when peace feels distant, almost unreachable, like something promised but never delivered. You want calm so badly, yet the harder you reach for it, the more it slips away. Your thoughts keep circling the same worries, the same unanswered questions, the same fears that refuse to let you rest. And slowly, frustration turns inward. You start wondering what is wrong with you. Why can others find peace while your mind feels like a battlefield? Here is the truth you need to hear. Peace does not disappear because you failed. Peace feels unavailable because your mind has learned to survive by staying alert. Somewhere along the way, your heart decided that rest was dangerous, that letting go meant losing control, that silence would expose fears you have tried to keep buried. So your thoughts keep moving, not to harm you, but to protect you in the only way they know how. When peace feels unavailable, it is not because God is withholding it. It is because your soul has been living in defense mode for too long. You have trained yourself to carry responsibility for everything, even for things you cannot change. You try to solve tomorrow today. You try to rewrite yesterday in your head, and in doing so, you exhaust the part of you that was created to trust. I want you to understand something deeply. Peace is not the absence of thoughts. It is the absence of fear within your thoughts, and fear cannot be forced out. It must be replaced by trust. When peace feels unavailable, it is often because you are still asking your mind to be the source of your safety. But your mind was never meant to be your refuge. This is the moment where many give up, believing peace is not for them. But this moment is not the end. It is the beginning of awareness that your restlessness has a reason, awareness that your exhaustion has a story, awareness that your soul is asking for a different way of living. Do not turn away from this realization. Stay present. What comes next will show you why your mind feels so heavy and what has been silently draining you all this time. The weight of thinking too much. Your mind was never designed to carry everything it carries now. Every thought you repeat adds weight, even the ones that seem harmless. You think because you care. You think because you want to be prepared. You think because somewhere inside you believe that if you stop thinking, something will fall apart. So you keep going. One thought leads to another, then another, until your mind feels crowded, heavy, exhausted. You tell yourself you are just being responsible, but responsibility has quietly turned into burden. Thinking too much does not begin as a problem. It begins as an attempt to protect yourself. You analyze conversations so you do not get hurt again. You imagine outcomes so you do not get caught off guard. You replay mistakes so you do not repeat them. But over time, this constant mental activity drains your energy. It steals your ability to be present. It pulls you away from the moment you are actually living and traps you in moments that exist only in your head. I see how tired you are, not physically but deep inside. The kind of tired that sleep does not fix. The kind of tired that comes from never turning off, never resting, never trusting that things can exist without your constant supervision. You carry thoughts that are not yours to solve. You hold worries that belong to tomorrow. You shoulder fears that were never meant to stay with you this long. The weight of thinking too much is not just mental. It settles into your body. Your shoulders tense, your chest tightens, your breathing becomes shallow. Even in moments of quiet, your mind refuses to sit down. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to believe that this constant inner noise is normal, that this is just how life feels. But I tell you this with love, this is not how you were created to live. Your mind was created to reflect, not to carry, to discern, not to control, to listen, not to dominate your entire being. When your thoughts become endless, it is a sign that your soul has been asked to survive without rest. And survival mode cannot produce peace. It can only produce endurance. You do not need to think less to find peace. You need to trust more. Because peace does not come from solving every thought. It comes from knowing that you do not have to. And this realization may feel uncomfortable at first because it challenges the belief that your thinking is what keeps you safe. But stay with this feeling. The next truth will show you why your mind never feels at ease, even when nothing is wrong. Why your mind never feels safe. Your mind stays alert because it learned that safety can disappear without warning. Even when your body is resting, your thoughts remain on guard, scanning for danger, expecting disruption, preparing for impact. This does not happen because you are weak. It happens because at some point, peace was interrupted, trust was broken, or stability was shaken, and your mind adapted. It decided that vigilance was safer than vulnerability. So now, even in calm moments, something inside you stays tense. Silence feels suspicious. Stillness feels exposed. When nothing is happening, your mind creates scenarios, not because it enjoys tormenting you, but because it fears being unprepared. It tells you that rest is risky, that letting go invites loss, that control is the only shield you have. And over time, this belief becomes so familiar that you stop questioning it. But I want you to see what is really happening. Your mind is trying to be your protector. It has taken on a role it was never meant to carry. Safety was never meant to come from constant awareness or endless thinking. Safety was meant to come from trust. From knowing that even if things change, you are not alone in the change. The reason your mind never feels safe is not because danger is always present. It is because trust has been replaced by anticipation. You anticipate disappointment. You anticipate conflict. You anticipate loss. And anticipation keeps your nervous system activated, your thoughts racing, your heart guarded. Even joy feels temporary because your mind is already preparing for it to end. I know this feels exhausting. To never fully relax, to never fully arrive, to always feel like something is missing or something is coming. But listen to me carefully. Safety does not come from predicting every outcome. It comes from surrendering the need to predict at all. When you try to make your mind the source of your security, it will never feel safe enough because it was not designed for that responsibility. You were created to rest in something greater than your own awareness, to lean on a presence that does not sleep, does not panic, does not need to rehearse the future. Your mind calms not when it understands everything, but when it knows it is not alone. This is where the struggle deepens for many, because letting go of control feels like stepping into uncertainty, and uncertainty feels dangerous to a mind that has survived by staying alert. But what if the very thing you are holding onto for safety is the reason you cannot rest? The next truth will challenge what you believe about control and reveal why it has been quietly draining your peace all along. The lie that you must stay in control. You learned early that being in control feels safer than trusting what you cannot see. Control feels like stability. It feels like responsibility. It feels like maturity. You tell yourself that if you stay alert, stay prepared, stay one step ahead, nothing will catch you off guard. But control has a hidden cost. It slowly convinces you that everything depends on you. And when everything depends on you, peace becomes impossible. Control disguises itself as wisdom. It tells you that letting go is careless, that surrender is risky, that relaxing means lowering your guard. So you manage everything. You manage outcomes, you manage emotions, you manage expectations. Even in prayer, you manage what you say, how you say it, and what kind of answer you are willing to accept. But the more you manage, the heavier your heart becomes. I want you to see the truth beneath this habit. Control is not strength. It is fear wearing the mask of responsibility. It is the belief that if you loosen your grip, something precious will be lost, and so you hold tighter. You think harder, you plan more. Yet the peace you are chasing never arrives because peace cannot exist where control is ruling. You were never meant to carry the outcome of everything you touch. You were meant to walk in trust, not tension. When control takes over, your mind never rests because it believes rest is dangerous. It believes that stopping means failing. But hear this clearly, rest is not neglect. Surrender is not abandonment. Trust is not weakness. The lie of control tells you that you are alone in managing your life, that no one will catch what you drop, that no one will step in if you step back. But this lie has kept you tired, anxious, and disconnected from the peace you long for. Control keeps your hands full, so your heart has no space to receive. Letting go feels frightening because it challenges your identity. Who are you if you are not the one holding everything together? Who are you if you stop trying to prevent every possible outcome? But this question is not meant to scare you. It is meant to free you. Because the moment you release control, you make room for something stronger than your effort. And this is where many struggle the most, because when you loosen your grip, you often hear silence, and silence can feel like abandonment. But what if that silence is not absence? What if it is presence waiting to be trusted? This is where the next truth begins to unfold. God's silence is not absence. Silence can feel unsettling when you are already tired of carrying so much. You pray, you wait, and instead of answers, you hear nothing. No clear direction, no immediate relief, just quiet. And in that quiet, your mind begins to interpret. You wonder if you are being ignored. You question whether you did something wrong. You start filling the silence with assumptions that deepen your anxiety. But I need you to hear this clearly. Silence does not mean abandonment. Silence often means presence without interruption. You have been taught to expect God to speak the way people do, quickly, loudly, with explanations that calm your fears. But God is not rushed, and He is not anxious. His silence is not empty. It is intentional. It is the space where trust is formed, not through information, but through relationship. When answers do not come immediately, it is not because you are forgotten. It is because you are being invited to rest without conditions. Your mind struggles with silence because it wants clarity before trust. It wants guarantees before surrender. But faith does not grow through constant reassurance. It grows when you remain present, even when nothing is being explained. This is uncomfortable, especially for someone who has survived by staying alert. Silence removes the illusion of control. It exposes the fear underneath, the fear that if God does not speak right now, everything might fall apart. But look closely at your life. How many moments have you survived without knowing how? How many doors opened without warning? How many answers came later when you finally looked back? God has been present in ways your mind could not track. His silence was not inactivity, it was movement beyond your awareness. Silence is where your soul learns to breathe again. It is where your thoughts slow down, not because they were forced to stop, but because they realize they do not need to perform. In silence, you are not required to impress, explain, or figure anything out. You are simply held. I know silence can feel lonely when you are waiting for relief. But what if this quiet is not distance? What if it is closeness without noise? What if God is closer now than when you were searching for words? Silence strips away dependency on explanations and teaches the heart to rest without conditions. This is where peace begins to form quietly, without announcement. Not because your situation changed, but because your posture did. You stopped demanding answers and started allowing presence. And when presence is enough, something unexpected happens. Your anxiety begins to speak differently. It no longer feels like an enemy. It starts to sound like a call, and that call leads into something deeper than silence itself. The moment anxiety becomes a prayer. There is a moment when anxiety stops feeling like chaos and starts revealing its true purpose. Until now, you have tried to silence it, fight it, outrun it. You treated anxiety as an intruder, something that should not exist in a faithful life. But what if anxiety is not the problem? What if it is the signal? What if it is the language your soul uses when words are no longer enough? Anxiety rises when your heart is overwhelmed and your mind can no longer carry what it has been holding. It shows up when you have reached the limit of self-control. This is not failure, this is honesty. Anxiety is what happens when your inner world finally admits, I cannot do this alone anymore. And that confession is closer to prayer than you realize. Prayer is not polished speech. It is exposure. It is bringing what is real into the presence of God without editing it. When anxiety tightens your chest and scatters your thoughts, it is not disqualifying you from prayer. It is inviting you into a deeper one. A prayer without structure, a prayer without explanations, a prayer that sounds like breath, like surrender, like silence mixed with trust. You do not need to turn anxiety into beautiful words. You need to let it be seen. When you stop trying to calm yourself before coming to God, something shifts. Anxiety stops being an enemy and becomes a doorway. It carries you to the exact place where control ends and trust begins. This is where prayer becomes real, not something you perform, but something you live. I know you have been taught that prayer requires focus, stillness, the right mindset. But some of the most honest prayers rise from unrest. When your thoughts race and your heart feels heavy, that is not the moment to withdraw. That is the moment to stay, to let God meet you in the middle of the noise, to allow Him to hear what you cannot organize. When anxiety becomes prayer, you stop demanding relief and start offering honesty. You stop asking for answers and start offering yourself. This kind of prayer does not always calm you instantly, but it anchors you. It reminds your soul that it is not alone in the tension, that someone stronger is holding what you can no longer manage. And here is what changes everything. When you stop trying to fix anxiety and instead bring it into God's presence, it loses its power to dominate you. It no longer controls your attention. It no longer defines your state of mind. It becomes a messenger that has delivered its message and can finally rest. This is where surrender deepens, because once anxiety becomes prayer, you realize you no longer need perfect conditions to connect with God. You only need honesty. And honesty opens the door to something even more vulnerable, allowing God not just into your prayers, but into the noise itself, letting God enter your inner noise. You have been trying to meet God in calm moments, waiting until your thoughts settle before you open your heart. But the truth is, your life rarely gives you that kind of quiet. So you wait. And while you wait, the noise continues. The worries keep speaking, the doubts keep interrupting, and slowly you begin to believe that God can only enter when everything is under control. But I want you to hear this clearly. God does not wait for silence. He steps into the noise. Your inner noise is not a barrier to His presence. It is the very place He wants to meet you. The thoughts you try to suppress, the fears you avoid naming, the tension you carry without words. None of this pushes God away. It draws Him closer. When you invite God into your inner noise, you stop pretending. You stop performing calmness. You allow yourself to be fully seen. This is where surrender becomes real. Not when your mind is quiet, but when your heart opens in the middle of the chaos. Letting God enter your inner noise means you stop editing your experience. You stop trying to present yourself as composed. You come as you are, scattered, tired, unsure. And in that honesty, something shifts. The noise does not disappear, but it loses authority. God does not compete with your thoughts. He does not shout over them. He settles beneath them. While your mind runs in every direction, His presence remains steady. And slowly, your thoughts begin to realize they are not in charge. They do not need to control the moment. They do not need to solve everything. They can rest because someone else has taken the lead. Letting God into your inner noise is an act of trust. It is saying, I will not clean myself up before coming to you. I will not wait until I am calm to let you in. I will bring the mess, the questions, the fear, and trust that you are not offended by my humanity. This kind of surrender changes the way you experience peace. Peace stops being something you chase and becomes something that holds you. You may notice that your thoughts still appear, but they no longer pull you under. They pass through without taking control. This is not because you mastered your mind. It is because you stopped asking it to lead. You invited God to sit where your thoughts used to rule. And once God is no longer outside, waiting for silence, something even deeper happens. You stop feeling the need to explain everything. Words begin to feel unnecessary. Trust takes their place. And that is where a new kind of freedom begins. What happens when you stop explaining everything to God? There comes a moment when words start to feel heavy. You begin a prayer and realize you are repeating the same explanations, the same justifications, the same reasons why you feel the way you feel. You explain your fear, you explain your pain, you explain what went wrong and what you are afraid might happen next. Not because God needs the information, but because you are still trying to make sense of it yourself. Explaining feels like control. It feels like staying involved. It feels safer than silence. But something changes when you stop explaining, when you realize that God already knows what you are carrying, not just the facts, but the weight of them. He knows the thoughts you cannot finish. He knows the fears you struggle to name. He knows the places where your words break down. When you stop explaining, you are not withdrawing. You are trusting. You are saying, you see this better than I do. Stopping the explanations can feel uncomfortable at first. Silence exposes how much you relied on words to feel close, how much you depended on talking to avoid feeling. But this silence is different. It is not empty. It is relational. It is the silence of being understood without needing to perform understanding. When you stop explaining everything to God, prayer becomes simpler and deeper. It becomes presence instead of persuasion. You are no longer trying to convince Him of your need or your sincerity. You are allowing yourself to be held as you are. This is where peace starts to grow roots, quietly, without effort. Your mind may try to interrupt, urging you to clarify, to add details, to regain control. Let it pass. You are not neglecting responsibility by trusting God with what you cannot articulate. You are releasing the burden of having to manage the outcome. You are acknowledging that some things do not need to be solved in words. They need to be surrendered in trust. In this space, something subtle happens. Your thoughts slow, not because they were forced, but because they no longer have an audience. They realize they are not needed to mediate between you and God. Relationship takes their place, and as explanations fade, rest begins to appear. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. The kind of rest that does not depend on answers, the kind that stays even when questions remain. This rest prepares you for a deeper distinction, one that many miss. The difference between knowing God with your mind and resting in Him with your whole being. The difference between thinking about God and resting in God. You can think about God constantly and still feel exhausted. You can reflect on His nature, remember His promises, replay what you have learned, and yet your heart remains tense. Thinking about God keeps Him in your thoughts. Resting in God allows Him into your trust. This difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Thinking about God often feels productive. It gives your mind something meaningful to focus on. It reassures you that you are being faithful, attentive, engaged. But if your relationship with God remains only in your thoughts, your mind stays in control. You are still managing the connection. You are still analyzing, interpreting, organizing. And the mind that needs to rest is the same mind being asked to carry the relationship. Resting in God requires something different. It requires letting go of mental activity as the main form of connection. It is choosing presence over analysis, trust over understanding, being with God instead of thinking about Him. This kind of rest feels unfamiliar at first because it removes your usual tools. There is nothing to solve, nothing to explain, nothing to prove. When you rest in God, you allow Him to be the source of your stability instead of your thoughts. Your mind no longer needs to monitor the relationship. It can step back, it can breathe, it can exist without carrying meaning. This is where peace begins to deepen, because peace is not found in clarity. It is found in reliance. Many people struggle here because resting feels passive. It feels like doing nothing. But resting in God is not inactivity. It is consent. It is allowing God to support what you have been holding. It is trusting that His presence does not depend on your mental engagement. This shift can feel unsettling. Your mind may resist, trying to reassert control by thinking, questioning, analyzing. Let it pass. Rest is not something you achieve by effort. It is something you allow by surrender. As you begin to rest, you may notice something surprising. The fear underneath your constant thinking starts to surface, and this fear is important. It reveals why letting go has always felt so difficult. It shows you what has been holding you back from surrendering completely. And facing that fear is the next step toward true peace, the fear of letting go completely. There is a fear deeper than anxiety, deeper than restlessness, deeper than exhaustion. It is the fear of letting go completely. Not letting go of a problem, but letting go of control over who you are, how you are seen, and how your life unfolds. This fear does not shout, it whispers. It asks quiet questions. Who will I be if I stop holding everything together? What will protect me if I stop staying alert? What happens if I surrender and things still hurt? This fear is powerful because it is tied to identity. You have learned to survive by being strong, by thinking ahead, by managing outcomes. Letting go feels like erasing the version of yourself that kept you safe. So even when you want peace, part of you resists it. Peace requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels dangerous to a heart that has learned to protect itself at all costs. You may believe that surrender means losing yourself, that if you loosen your grip, you will disappear, fail, or fall apart. But surrender does not erase you, it reveals you. It removes the weight you were never meant to carry, so your true self can finally breathe. The self that does not live in constant tension, the self that trusts without rehearsing disaster. Letting go completely is frightening because it removes your backup plans. It exposes the truth that you cannot control outcomes, people, or timing. And that truth feels unbearable when you have depended on control to feel safe. But this is where trust becomes real. Not when you feel ready, but when you admit you are not. I am not asking you to abandon responsibility. I am asking you to release the belief that responsibility requires anxiety. You can care deeply without gripping tightly. You can love fully without controlling outcomes. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what belongs to God. This fear will try to convince you that surrender is reckless, that rest is irresponsible, that trust is naive. But look at how tired you are from holding everything alone. Look at how heavy your heart feels from never resting. What if the risk you fear is actually the rescue you need? When you face this fear honestly, something softens. You realize that holding on has not protected you the way you hoped. And in that realization, a new understanding begins to form. Surrender is not a dramatic moment. It is a daily choice to return, to trust again and again. And that choice is what comes next. Surrender as a daily return, not a one-time act. You may have thought of surrender as a single moment, something powerful and emotional, a decision you make once and never revisit. But surrender does not work that way. It is not an event. It is a return. A quiet, daily movement of the heart back toward trust. Each time your mind tightens, each time fear resurfaces, each time control tries to reclaim its place, surrender invites you to come back. You do not fail because you need to surrender again. You are practicing. Life will keep placing weight on your thoughts. Responsibilities will return. Uncertainty will appear. And each time you are given a choice. Hold it yourself or place it back into God's care. This choice is not dramatic. It happens in ordinary moments, in your breathing, in your reactions, in the way you respond to what you cannot control. Daily surrender is gentle. It does not demand perfection. It does not shame you for picking the burden back up. It simply invites you to notice and release, over and over. This repetition is not weakness. It is how trust is built. Just as fear learned to live in your thoughts through repetition, peace learns to live there the same way. When surrender becomes a daily return, your relationship with God changes. It becomes less about performance and more about presence. You stop measuring your faith by how calm you feel and start measuring it by how quickly you return to trust when tension rises. This shift removes pressure. You no longer expect yourself to stay surrendered. You allow yourself to return when you forget. There will be days when surrender feels natural and days when it feels impossible. Both are part of the process. What matters is not consistency in feeling, but consistency in direction. Each return loosens the grip of control. Each release lightens the weight your mind carries. This daily return slowly reshapes you, not all at once, but steadily. You begin to notice that your reactions soften, your thoughts lose urgency. Your fear does not dominate as it once did. This is not because your life became easier, but because your trust became deeper. And as surrender becomes familiar, something else begins to change quietly beneath the surface. Your mind starts to calm in a way you did not force. Peace begins to form from the inside out, reshaping how you experience everything around you. How God calms the mind from the inside out. God does not calm your mind by silencing your world. He calms it by changing where your mind rests. You may have expected peace to arrive when circumstances improve, when answers appear, when problems resolve. But God works differently. He begins inside you, in the place where fear learned to live. He does not remove every trigger. He reshapes your response to them. When God calms the mind, He does not fight your thoughts. He reorders them. The thoughts that once rushed to the front lose their urgency. The fears that once demanded attention no longer control your focus. This shift is subtle. You may not notice it immediately. But over time, you realize that your mind no longer reacts the way it used to. What once overwhelmed you now passes through without taking over. This calm does not come from discipline or mental strength. It comes from trust settling deeper than fear. As you return to surrender daily, your nervous system begins to learn a new language. It learns that it does not need to stay alert to survive. It learns that it can rest without losing safety. This is not something you force. It happens naturally when trust becomes familiar. God calms the mind by anchoring it in presence. When you know you are not alone, your thoughts no longer need to guard you. When you trust that God is holding what you released, your mind no longer needs to monitor everything. Calm grows quietly, like roots strengthening beneath the surface. You may still have busy days, you may still face uncertainty, but something inside you stays steady. Your thoughts no longer spiral the same way. Your fear no longer feels endless. You begin to experience moments of peace that appear without effort, moments where your mind settles on its own. This is not the absence of thought, it is the presence of trust. And once your mind learns this new rhythm, it does not forget it easily. Even when tension returns, calm is closer than before. And this calm reveals something important. Peace does not depend on change. It can remain even when nothing around you shifts. That realization leads you to a deeper, more enduring peace than you ever expected. The peace that stays when nothing changes. There is a kind of peace that only exists when everything improves, when problems resolve, when answers finally arrive. That peace is fragile. It comes and goes with circumstances, but there is another peace, deeper and quieter, that remains even when nothing around you changes. This is the peace you are being led toward now. This peace does not depend on outcomes. It does not wait for clarity. It does not require certainty. It exists because your heart has shifted its foundation. You no longer rest on what you can control, predict, or manage. You rest on trust. And trust does not collapse when circumstances remain unresolved. When nothing changes externally, your mind expects anxiety to return. It waits for the familiar tension, but instead you notice something different. A steadiness, a calm awareness that you are not alone in the uncertainty, that what you released is still being held. This peace is not excitement, it is assurance without explanation. This kind of peace feels strange at first, almost uncomfortable. Your mind may question it, wondering if you are ignoring reality or being careless. But this peace is not denial. It is acceptance without fear. It is facing reality without being ruled by it. Peace that stays is not loud. It does not announce itself. It settles gently into your reactions, your breathing, your thoughts. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of panic. You feel concern without being consumed by it. This is not because your problems disappeared. It is because your heart found a safer place to rest. This peace teaches you something important. You were never meant to wait for perfect conditions to feel safe. Safety was always meant to come from relationship, not resolution, from presence, not proof. And as this peace becomes familiar, it prepares you for one final movement, a moment of release that gathers everything you have been carrying and places it where it truly belongs, not with effort, not with fear, but with trust. God, I release what I can no longer carry. There comes a moment when you realize you have reached the end of what you can hold. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. You have carried thoughts that never rested. You have carried fears that never belonged to you. You have carried responsibility for outcomes you could not control. And now, your soul is tired. This is not a moment of defeat. This is a moment of truth. Right here, you are invited to release what has been weighing you down. Not gradually, not with conditions, but honestly. You do not need to name every burden. You do not need to explain every pain. You simply open your hands. You admit that you cannot carry this anymore. And in that admission, surrender becomes complete. This is not giving up on life. This is giving life back to God. You are not abandoning responsibility. You are placing it where it belongs. You are saying, I trust you with what I cannot manage. I trust you with what I cannot fix. I trust you with what keeps returning to my thoughts. When you release what you can no longer carry, something settles inside you. Not excitement, not relief that fades, but rest. The kind of rest that feels like being held instead of holding on. The kind of rest that allows your mind to stop proving its strength. You may not feel everything change instantly, but something has shifted. You are no longer alone in the weight. You are no longer responsible for holding everything together. You have chosen trust over tension, presence over pressure, surrender over control. And as you rest here, know this: God is not asking you to pick it all back up tomorrow. Each day you can return to this release. Each moment you can remember where your safety truly lives. You are not meant to carry everything. You never were, and now you do not have to anymore.